r/NoSleep. Posted by u/CrimsonBayonet. I visited a library with a strange rule and now I am trapped here. Hello, I have a warning for anyone wanting to visit a library, as you may be stuck like I am forever. Let me give you some insight so maybe you can avoid my fate. This all started when I wanted to go into a library in my city. You see, the city I live in isn't by any means large, it's more of an average-sized city that is the hub of 3 national highways. Not much goes on here until recently, when it was reported that someone went missing at the library. I work for the local newspaper and they wanted me to go down to check what was happening. Since a police report was filed and the only thing they were able to do was to file a missing person report. When I got there the police were already done, but I wanted to do my own digging, so I asked the librarian what happened. Hello, I am a reporter for the local paper, the Ridge Beach Herald. I wanted to know if you had any information you could give the news. I spoke with confidence. The librarian seemed nervous and a bit scared when he spoke. Well, to tell you the truth, not much we can give. When checking the cameras, the young woman came in and grabbed a book in the fictional aisle and never left. We don't have enough cameras to cover all the aisles, so we have no clue where she could have gone. But we know she has never left because the cameras would show her leaving. May I see the camera feed so I can make sure? That's if you don't mind, of course, I said while smiling and rubbing my neck. The librarian looked a little worried and wanted to tell me something, but nothing came out. He instead just waved me toward a door behind the desk. Inside the room was one computer and a few filing cabinets. He sat down at the computer and logged into the system. Pulling up the cameras, he then just pointed to the screen and spoke. Well, here she is in stone-washed blue pants and a teal-colored shirt. If you watch, she comes to the fictional aisle and stares at the wall for almost 20 minutes, then shakes her head. She then goes and grabs a book and walks behind this wall. We haven't seen her since. The strangest thing is there's nothing there when you go to where she was. It's just a couch and 2 chairs with a small table and magazines. He looked a bit shaken up when he showed me. She has been gone for almost a whole month. It just makes no sense. I thanked the man and then decided to take a look around the library. I have my tape recorder on and was recording everything I saw that seemed odd. As I got to the fiction section, I saw a wall poster with just a few little rules. Nothing too odd except for 1. No excessive talking or loud noises. 2. No food or drinks. 3. No running. 4. Report all book damage to the librarian. 5. Use bookmarks. 6. Place the books back where they belong. 7. Never fall asleep while reading. At the time I thought the last one was a little odd, but I could imagine why it exists. I walked around the same wall the missing girl did and saw the couch and chairs like the librarian said. However, there was a book at the table sitting there open without a bookmark. Thinking nothing of it, I walked to the table and laid my backpack down at the foot of the chair I was sitting on. I pulled out my laptop and started to write the story while quietly listening to my recordings. While sitting there and listening, I heard a voice in the background after reading the rules. Help me, help me, help me. The disembodied voice sent a chill up my spine as it seemed so uncanny, kind of human but not quite there. I was a little taken back by this and decided to look around the area I was. When I got to the poster and looked around, there was nothing there other than a red bookmark with the words "Keep calm and read on." I picked it up and walked back to my chair. I placed the bookmark on the book that was still open as I wasn't sure who left it there. I kept typing away to this story when I felt someone or something was staring at me. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me as I felt fear. Looking around, I kept seeing nothing, however I still had this funny feeling that I was in danger and being watched. I closed my laptop and stood up. I kept feeling this dread, so I decided to walk around and maybe look and see if anyone was watching me. I turned the corner and nothing. No one was there. I looked behind the shelves and rows of books and saw nothing. I decided to sit back down and started to write more. After about half an hour I started to feel drowsy, but I had to get this paper out. So I finally finished it and started to proofread the story. The further I read, the more I drifted off to sleep. I believe I finally passed out because I woke up in panic-induced cold sweats. I looked around and I was still in the same library. I decided to get up and pack my things after submitting my story. Walking downstairs, I noticed something was very off. The lights were much dimmer and there wasn't a single person there. I looked around and it was nothing like the library I was in. There are endless rows of books with tables and chairs scattered throughout. I started to panic and started to run in one direction. Eventually ran out of breath and could still not see an end in sight. I kept looking for an exit and started to shout, "Hello? Is anyone there?" It just left echoing with no response back. So I kept walking in one direction, hoping to come across someone or anything at this point. My hope dwindled as I realized this wasn't a dream and I was here. I was so exhausted and needed to rest. I found a chair and a table that had a lamp on it that was turned on but had no power line. As I sat there, I decided to open my laptop, and it seemed I still had internet somehow, and the battery on my laptop was showing that it was fully charged. This was odd because I never plugged it in today. To be honest, this was the least of my worries. It wasn't long until I heard another voice whispering at me through the aisle of books. I turned to see who was talking to me, and it was a younger woman who couldn't be older than 30. She had light blue eyes and was covered in dust. "Oh shit. Someone else is here," I shouted in happiness and excitement. "Not so loud or they will hear us. Look, I have been following you for some time, and not far from here is a settlement where other people are. We are trying to find a way out and survive. Come with me," she spoke in a hushed tone. "Who are they?" I asked. "Just follow me. When we are safe we can talk." She stood up and slowly started to walk toward the end of the aisle to meet me. We both stood there and she nodded and gestured for me to follow her. After what seemed like half an hour of walking, we arrived at the makeshift settlement. It was a bunch of bookshelves turned to make a small fortress. It was pressed up against a corner of two walls, one side having a bathroom and the other looking to be a staff room that had a small kitchen. As we entered inside, there was a population of about 20 people here. All of different races and sizes, however, no matter the language, it seems we all could understand it. I got to sit down and speak to the lady who saved me. "So what are the things you were talking about earlier?" I asked nervously. "Well, we call them the librarians. They are large spider-like creatures who have human faces and long black hair. If you are too loud they can find you easily, however they seem to be blind, so not making any noise makes it to where they can find us. Here we are safe to make noise, but we don't know why." She spoke in a relaxed tone. "So how do we eat and drink? I'm really hungry and didn't bring any food." My stomach growled as I spoke, which caused a slight bit of pain. "Well, the staff kitchen seems to have a near limitless supply of food. No matter what we take from the fridge, it seems to restock itself. So help yourself. It's been weeks and I still haven't found a way out. I walked what seems to be 100 miles which lead nowhere. Last night I saw a librarian for the first time. This was when a man named Jerry started to walk with me to find more survivors. We walked a couple of miles away and heard a yelling, 'Anyone there? Hello?' We started to pick up the pace and rounded a corner to find a man yelling and asking for help. He spotted us and he shouted again, 'Hey! Over here! Help me!' Before we can tell him to be quiet, it was too late. A librarian pounced on him and was tearing him into pieces. Chunks of flesh were being tossed. Every bite the librarian took seemed to spray a fine mist of blood into the air, filling the air with the smell of iron. It took everything I could to not vomit, as I could hear the muscle snapping off the bone like a rubber band breaking. The sound of bone crunching and blood squelching was the only thing we heard as we silently walked away. Next story of this video. Posted by u/CrimsonBayonet. Never walk in Clarksville Historic District at night. This comes as a warning for anyone who's in the area or moving to Clarksville, Tennessee. Let me tell you how I found out why it's never a good idea to explore the historic district at night. A few years ago, when I lived in Clarksville, a large military town and one of the oldest cities in Tennessee, I decided to take a trip to my sister's apartment complex, which was just on the edge of the historic district. She would always make me home-cooked food and buy me soda and snacks. She and I were best friends, and she knew my mother and I never really got along. On this night it wasn't anything too fancy and the walk wasn't very far from the bus depot. I took the last bus because I have terrible social anxiety. All I could do was sit on the bus and wait for it to reach the depot. With music in my ears and thinking of my sister homemade nacho caused me to relax. I then calmly fell asleep. I woke up in a panic as it was much darker than it should be, considering it was summer, and my phone only said 5:30 p.m. Grabbing my bag, I checked my phone again before turning the screen off. I see the time was in military time. Reading 2200 would be impossible. My head was foggy as I fumbled to turn the screen off. A voice bellowed through the bus asking me to leave as it was the last stop. This snapped me out of my delirium. I take another look outside and the light was normal again. Must have been a dream, I thought to myself as I rubbed my eyes and shook my head. I jumped off the bus heading toward the dollar store down the road from the bus stop, listening to the newest Red Hot Chili Peppers album. To this day I can't listen to Stadium Arcadium without an overwhelming sense of dread. I was about to cross the street when I hear the church bells ringing to signify it was 6 p.m. My music started to distort as the final bell rang. Hurting my ears, I quickly yanked the earbuds out and turned my phone off. I looked up from my phone planning to cross the street again. That's when I smelled the foulest scent I ever had. The smell of rust and stagnant water was assaulting my nose with a hint of ammonia for the final kick. I could feel a lump of vomit swelling in my throat. Holding it back, I swallowed the slurry down my throat and looked up. The same darkness from my dream became reality. It was like an endless void of no light, stars, cars, or even people. I heard then what sounded like a large party. Music so loud it reverberated and echoed in the empty air in black night. Not knowing what came over me, I started walking toward the sound, curious but entranced I couldn't stop moving. As I approached the area where the sound was coming from, the rhythm made it more enticing. I nearly lost control of my body and mind, as if I was being led on a leash into a back alley leading into what looked to be a small nightclub. The smell knocked me out of the trance. It was then I saw them. Large, pale, no-eyed monsters, only a thin set of lips and a large maw smiling at me. I was terrified. They kept staring at me. Not into me, as if my soul was being fetishized. The smell stopped and I was waved in. I didn't want to go in, but I felt dread just at the thought of declining. Inside this club, it was impossibly large. It felt as if there was no end in sight and no ceiling. Lights in it were dancing and twisting through a thin cloud of smoke. The smell was that of my sister's street tacos. How does this place know my favorite smell? Does this happen to everyone? I can't shake this feeling of being trapped. As if I had no other choice. Looking around, I see twisted inhuman creatures, each horrifying and equally grotesque. Although I was frozen in fear, I can see they aren't paying any attention to me. I kept walking silently and low to not bring attention to myself. Finding the nearest booth, I sat down and covered my head in my hoodie and popped my earbuds in to drown out the music. I can't help to feel these things were watching me. As if I was expected. It was what felt like a few days before something tapped my shoulder. I froze in fear. I didn't want to move. IT walked around and sat in the booth across from me. I didn't want to make eye contact. IT then reached out and grabbed I had firmly, slowly sinking its razor-sharp claws into my hand. I winced and watched as he keeps digging into my hands. As soon as I made eye contact with the thing, it let go. I noticed no blood running down my hand. The wounds were healing and I felt no pain. I was still terrified as this thing laughed and told me to look around. Hundreds of blood-red eyes looked at me. Why am I here? What do you want? All I hear was a loud uproar from the group except the thing in front of me. I was finally getting a good look. It looked much like the doorman. Large mouth, sharp teeth, no other facial features like nose or eyes. The skin was pale and cold. His breath smelled of ammonia and decaying flesh. Wearing what looked to be a bowler hat and a suit with a gray tie. This thing yelled, silencing all of the other guests. Causing me to cover my ears in pain. It felt like I was going to implode. I then looked back at this thing. He opened his mouth and smiled. I then heard his voice in my head. Don't be a frightened child. You are but a guest in my domain. I welcome you. A wave of calm rushed through me. It felt familiar, but the unease was still there. I didn't even speak before he cut me off. No, I looked puzzled and asked, no what? He smiled another toothy smile. I know what you were going to ask. I say no to save time. I can see your soul. It's different but easy to read still. You were going to ask if I'm going to harm you or something along those lines. Hence my answer, shocked as thought. So you know what I'm going to say? Can you read minds? The creature smiled and laughed. No, I can see many futures based on the souls in my domain. I see, hear and know all that goes on in here. All pasts, presents, and futures. An infinite set of timelines winding and twisting. All of the stories I can read and change. But yours, he paused, pointing at me, waving his long finger. Your story is different. I can't edit your story or see your future more than a few seconds ahead. Who are you? I asked snakingly. I am the owner and creator of this place. I am the void, and this is God's blind spot. Sin, primal urges, and dark fantasies exist here. Some call me him, others call me sin. My name is he who brought the dark. You, my friend, can call me void. You see here, insert reader's name here. I know you are watching us. Reading this man's story unfold in front of you. Does this entertain you? Does this frighten you? I look in confusion. That's not my name. Who are you speaking to? I say slightly under my breath. He then snaps his head at me. I get my layers of fictional stories mixed up. I apologize. Where was I? Oh yes. Right now, Tim, you're in God's blind spot. No one can harm you here but me if I wanted, that is. I asked nervously. I need to leave. My sister is waiting for me. Void let out a bullish laugh. This place is outside and above the concepts of space and time, young man. No time would have passed. He sighs. You may leave. I got what I wanted out of you. Why don't you warn people of this area? It'll bring their stories to me. I'm starving for a good story. He grins as he looks into the sky. While this thing was looking into the air, he said, soon I will wreak havoc on the world above. Beg that I succeed, for I have seen the throne of God. And it was empty. Everything turned black as the echoes of what he said reverberated in the never-ending void. I felt as if I was falling into what? I'm not sure there is an end. I was then rocked by my sister screaming my name. Thank God you're awake. I've been worried sick. I was going to meet you at the bus stop. You looked to wake up but went straight back to sleep when I called your name the first time. I can't seem to remember much after that. My brain isn't able to remember the rest of the weekend. It's as if there's a block. I got home without any issues, but the thing I spoke to is still in my head, watching my every move. I see you reading. Are you having fun? Tim brought you to me. Your story will be delicious. I can taste your fear. I can smell your salty breath. I know you can see this. I can see you. Come closer and look into the void, but remember, as you stare into the void stares back. Don't fight this, there's no reason to. I am everywhere in all possible axis of imagination. God has left you, child. Remember, I'm always watching, waiting for the next time you sleep. Wait, what was it I was talking about? Oh, yay. This comes as a warning for anyone who's in the area or moving to Clarksville, Tennessee. Let me tell you how I found out why it's never a good idea to explore the historic district at night.